Good evening, and welcome again to Deviant History, where tonight we return again to Russia. She was born as Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst, and she spent her childhood in conditions that can hardly be associated with an aristocratic lifestyle. Later, she wrote that she had to pick acorns with her mother to prepare an ersatz coffee because their finances did not allow the purchase of coffee beans. Life changed unexpectedly for young Sophie when a decision was taken far away from Pomerania, where she had been born. Empress Elizabeth of Russia, the daughter of Peter the Great, was looking for a young woman to marry her heir. Elizabeth did not have children, well, at least not recognized ones. It was a dangerous situation for the ruling Romanov house. The baby Emperor Ivan VI was overthrown in the coup of December 1741 that led Elizabeth to power. Now he was under arrest at the Schlüsselburg fort. The only possible heir was Peter, the Empress's nephew, who had stayed in Germany. Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst became Ekaterina, or Catherine as we know her, and Peter was her future husband, as well as one of the most controversial personalities among the Romanovs. The Russian Empress claimed Catherine to be Peter's bride, and his opinion did not matter. The marriage was not a happy one. Peter was hated by Elizabeth's court for his empathy to Prussia and its king Frederick the Great, who was the enemy of the triple Russian, Austrian, French alliance in the 7 Years' War. The heir also demonstrated some quirks. He played with toy soldiers, and that looked rather strange for a 30-year-old man. Some researchers suppose the story with toys might be a black legend invented later by Catherine to legitimize her power, but there are many sources depicting the heir's behavior, even ones by authors who could hardly be called Catherine's supporters. Elizabeth did not expect that Peter and Catherine would get along. She was possessed merely by the idea of saving the dynasty and pushed the couple to have children. Prince Paul was born in 1754, almost 10 years after the wedding. The Empress, who had begun to feel ill, could now feel some relief. After that, the spouses were left on their own, and each of them established romantic relations at court. This activity caused rumors about who actually was Prince Paul's biological father. Paul was doomed to live with those rumors all his life. Only modern tests have proved that his father was actually Peter. The cold relationship between Peter and Catherine was no secret. There was a big difference in their characters. Catherine paid much attention to making friends at Elizabeth's court, while her husband did not care at all. The peace treaty with Prussia became the fatal decision of the new emperor. It was signed soon after Elizabeth's death, when King Frederick's capital of Berlin was assaulted by the Russian army. Peter demanded nothing from King Frederick, just the alliance. That came as a nice surprise to the King of Prussia, but total incomprehension and irritation from both Austria and France. But the anger of the Russian military commanders was the most dangerous to Peter. It was no surprise that they preferred Catherine to be the new ruler. The coup itself was bloodless, as Peter did not have any support against it. Circumstances of his death under house arrest is the thing that will probably stay unclear forever. There are 3 main versions. 1. An insult caused a fight between Peter and Orlov. Number 2. a heart attack caused by genetics but triggered by the severe stress, and 3. The sanction for murder given by Catherine herself. The other less-known accident that cast a shadow on the beginning of Catherine's brilliant epoch was the murder of Ivan VI at Schlisselburg in 1764. In this case, we can also not prove if it was Catherine's decision or a failed attempt to release the miserable young man who saw nothing in his short life except the prison cell, not even his mother. In any case, Catherine's reign was as significant to Russia as Queen Victoria's was to 19th century Britain. It lasted 34 years and defined life for several generations. The epoch was called Catherine's Golden Age, but she herself used the term of enlightened absolutism. The concept created by European philosophers propagated the idea of a despotic type of monarch who used the absolute power for the benefit of the nation. Catherine corresponded with Voltaire, who contributed much to the development of the idea. She did her best to remake the Russian administrative system more effective. Catherine won 2 wars against the Ottoman Empire, extending Russian rule upon Crimea. The biggest challenge of her reign was a rebellion headed by a Cossack leader, Pugachev, who claimed to be the Emperor Peter, who had miraculously avoided death. Because of this rebellion, she had to finish her first Turkish campaign with only a minor benefit. And while being busy at the Ottoman Empire frontier, she had to take another hard decision when Austria and Prussia offered to divide Poland, which had been weakened by internal turmoil. By the end of Catherine's reign, the Polish state had disappeared from the map. This also coincided with a new challenge and frightening power: the revolutionary France. News about the execution of the French king, Louis XVI, made Catherine incredibly sick and put her in bed for several days. The idea of enlightened absolutism seemed not to work as well anymore. Relations with her own son had never worked well either. She used the love of her court and the aristocracy to allow her to continue rule as empress even when Prince Paul became an adult. Catherine had her favorite men and changed them periodically throughout her life. The best-known one, of course, was Grigory Orlov. Catherine even had a bastard son from him. The baby was immediately given to a foster family of high-ranking aristocrats and was given the title of Count Bobrinsky. There were also 3 girls whose birth mother likely was the empress. Another of Catherine's favorites was Orlov's namesake, Grigory Potemkin, whose sudden death in 1791 was marked in her diary as the biggest and most bitter loss. Those 2 men were the best known, but not the only favorites. Historians mention at least 20 names, including the last Polish king, King Stanislaw. Her last love was Count Platon Zubov, the young cavalry guard who caught Catherine's attention in 1789 while he was accompanying her on the regular trip to the summer palace outside of St. Petersburg. He was 22 years old, while Catherine celebrated her 60th birthday. By the time of the Empress's death in the autumn of 1796, Zubov had been elevated to the rank of prince. He had reached positions as the commander of the artillery and of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, as well as the position of general governor of Novorossiya, where he replaced the late Potemkin. He also became one of the richest landlords, having been awarded with properties in Lithuania. Growing corruption, however, was the dark side of Catherine's long reign. Prince Paul was furious, but felt unable to change anything before his mother's death. She found spouses for Paul's children, while he decided nothing. She chose the name Constantine for his son. It was a popular throne name among Byzantine emperors, and Catherine wanted the boy to become a future ruler of the restored Byzantium. She decided to marry her granddaughter to the young king of Sweden, to prevent possible conflicts between the two countries. Everything was ready for the wedding ceremony. The fiancé arrived to Petersburg, but the religious faith caused unexpected problems. Catherine demanded that her granddaughter stay Russian Orthodox Christian, despite the tradition of Lutheran Sweden. This was unacceptable for the young king. First, he closed himself in the room and made Catherine, with the court, wait in full, heavy, ceremonial dresses until the aged empress fainted. Then, the now ex-fiancé simply left for Stockholm and remained single. A few months later, Catherine died of a stroke. At age 42, Paul finally became the emperor. His first decision was the reburial of his father at the Romanovs' crypt beside Catherine. Then he issued the decree that prohibited inheritance of the throne by a female. And that decree stayed valid and in effect until 1917, when the monarchy in Russia was abolished. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Deviant History. Please like us and join us also on our YouTube channel.